Issiah Walker has chosen to transfer to Miami. We got to talk about it after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You got to help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And top 247 offensive tackle, number 15 ranked offensive tackle in the class last year, and Issiah Walker has decided that he's going to transfer to, yes, Miami from Florida, right? This is a big deal because Florida State thought that they were going to be in the running for the Miami Norland product, but he chose Manny Diaz and what is becoming Transfer U, not just the U. I mean, they picked up, yes, Borregales, FIU kicker. You know how to spell his last name, right? Quincy Roach also joined in this cycle, but also going back to last year, Bubba Bolden, Jalen Phillips, D'Eriq King, all of these transfers, Tate Martell choosing Miami. Now, after a disappointing year last year where they get beat down in the walk-on Independence Bowl, a lot of folks are expecting Manny Diaz to try to pull this thing out. He fired Dan Enos as offensive coordinator, brought in Rhett Lashley from SMU. We saw that offense work really well with Shane Buechele, Sonny Dykes, and them leading to the best season that SMU has had in nearly 30 years. Now trying to bring the magic to the ACC and perhaps compete with the likes of Florida State and Clemson, even North Carolina, for an ACC title. And adding Issiah Walker is going to help. Now, if he's eligible, it probably helps right away because we know that Miami's offensive line last year was utter trash. But there were also a bunch of freshmen on that offensive line, and you expect them to be better in year two. Now, I think that Issiah Walker, one, provides depth, and two, can be an immediate go-to starter for you right away if that's what you want. But even if he doesn't get the waiver, he's got 4 years to play for, which again is massive as Miami is trying to rebuild to something like greatness. Adding Ed Reed as, I'm not kidding, chief of staff to try to rekindle the fire that gave us Sebastian's U, the Cocaine Cowboys U, the Michael Irvin U, the Jimmy Johnson. Y'all just worry about going to win football games. I'll take care of everything else U. And Manny Diaz is a favorite son down there, and I don't know how much longer he's going to be one if he doesn't turn that program around. I'm also looking at perhaps what this means for Rhett Lashley if they produce a pretty good season, because with D'Eriq King as his quarterback, there's no telling what he might be able to do. I mean, he's obviously seen what that guy is capable of. I mean, he's coaching against him at Houston, right? We also know that the wide receiver position for them is going to be one in which they expect to excel, right? I also understand that there's some folks that are willing to put Miami in that 9-win range. And when you look at their schedule, especially with the non-conference, it's within reason, right? They open with Temple at Hard Rock Stadium, almost said Hard Rock Casino Stadium. Yeah, down in Miami. And then they get Michigan State and they get Wagner. They ought to win those games, right? You expect them to perhaps get pushed by Temple, who might be decent. You expect them to be really ahead of Michigan State because Mel Tucker's trying to build this program from scratch. And the Michigan State University has been in its own sort of quagmire, even as they add Scotty Hazelton as defensive coordinator, which I think is a sneaky, brilliant hire by Mel Tucker because Hazelton coming out of Kansas State, where Kansas State's defense was not only good, but helped get a win against Oklahoma in Manhattan, and comes from North Dakota State. And we all know that North Dakota State has been great year in and year out for nearly a decade now. I mean, we saw linebacker Jabril Cox end up making the grad transfer to LSU from one national championship program to another, and he was at one point playing, yes, in Scotty Hazelton's defense. So I expect them to be a contender at some point in the Big Ten East, just not this year. And you got to expect that now that you have seen what you can do at, Miami and what you can bring in at Miami, I expect Blake Baker to be good. I expected him to be good last year, I should say. And I expect Rhett Lashley to be good. I think another thing that is interesting about all of this is, what does this mean for like the Tagovailoa situation, right? Because he's in the portal, and I think Miami is a popular landing spot for him. If for no other reason, then perhaps you have that guy to go right after D'Eriq King heads for the NFL next year. It's a sexy thing. I think that it's one that we should all keep our eye on, right? As for Issiah Walker's development, I think it's going to behoove him to be at home. I think he's going to be able to travel get a home cooked meal, come back, continue to grow his 6'4", 305-pound frame into something that is a little bit more advantageous to playing offensive tackle in a pass rush league that I think is kind of awesome, right? And you're talking about some really good coaches there that have just been sunned by Dabo Swinney and Clemson. We talk a lot of noise about the ACC. We talk a lot of noise about what Clemson has to face in there. But year in, year out, you got Florida State, who has won a national championship. Miami has won national championship. North Carolina is on the rise. Just take a look at their recruiting class. Wake Forest was looking great until store brand Cam Newton ended up going to Georgia. But, the Surratt kid let us know that they got players out there. Boogie Basham was on the other side. Bronco Mendenhall is at Virginia, and he's one of the winningest coaches actively in college football. We know that Va Tech, at the very least, was able to get past a couple of teams that we didn't expect them to get past. Now, that said, the Whoville kids ended up getting the first win for Virginia over Va Tech in 15 years or something. I mean, Matt Schwab was the last winning quarterback before Bryce got it done. Bryce Perkins, that is. But I think that with Notre Dame being a part of this, and depending on what the schedule breaks out for them, because they got Clemson this year and what we expect to be a game for somebody to get into the college football playoff, it's going to be interesting. I think Miami is one of these wild card teams that you might expect to not be totally good in 2020, but in the age of the virus and the pandemic, it's interesting because, again, he, for the most part, returns a bunch of his staff and returns a bunch of his kids. And while that offense is going to be new to a lot of them, it's not especially hard. Resh Lashley wants to run the ball and throw deep, and De'Aaron King is going to be able to make things happen off schedule. I'm very excited to see what the U looks like in 2020. I'm very excited to see what Issiah Walker looks like in the coming years. And while I don't think he's going to get a waiver to play right away this year, I think that the redshirt year is going to sincerely help him, kind of like it's going to sincerely help a Chris Murray who has transferred from UCLA to Oklahoma that we all expect to sit out this year and be ready to go for 2021, which is the year in which I expect Oklahoma to contend for a national championship and perhaps win it. All right, that is it for me. Deuces.